Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Yes, thanks. So we can start. Because some of the students cannot be present. Some of them have already returned to their home country, have not very good internet connections. So I will videotape today's course and upload it to YouTube. Later, I will publish the YouTube link to via the Blackboard announcements. So everyone who wants to review the lecture or who wants to watch this lecture can always be welcome to click the link. Last week, we have already practiced the Atlas TI, and we already know how to analyze our interview transcripts by using the code. Today, I would like to go deeper into it. So how to analyze our interviews and what is the coding. So we already know the basic codes, how we can input that into Atlas TI. But how can we report this coding strategy in our methodology part in the report? And how to report the findings when we write the report. And later, your assignment is you need to discuss with your group members and to find your interviewees and try to start the interview. So by Thursday, you should have at least one interview transcripts at hand. And then we can use Atlas TI to analyze it. So I will first go to the first content, how to analyze the interview. Here I give you an example. So this is my example. This sentence, in the last minute, Ajax equalized the scoreboard against Celtic and moves to the quarterfinal. This sentence, if three people speak this sentence, and these three people are from different countries, and how this may be different. Let's try it. Suppose the first is the moderator from Scotland, and she said, in the last minute, Ajax Amsterdam equalized the scoreboard against Celtic Glasgow and moves to the quarterfinals. So this is the person from Scotland who utters this sentence. And if the second one from the Netherlands, and she said, in the last minute, Ajax Amsterdam equalized the scoreboard against Celtic Glasgow and moves to the quarterfinals. Okay, the same sentence, but different feelings. And the third people from Spain, and she said, in the last minute, Ajax Amsterdam equalized the scoreboard against Celtic Glasgow and moves to the quarterfinals. And then you can see all the people, they are speaking the same sentence, the same words. However, the feeling they delivered is different. For the people from Scotland, when they speak this sentence, they show their disappointment for that. People from the Netherlands, they are quite excited to speak out this sentence. And people from Spain, when they speak this sentence, you can feel that they keep neutral of that. So this is what I want to demonstrate. When in the future, when you report your interview findings, you should not only stay on the surface level, only report what my interviewees told me about it, but you should go into the deep level to say, hey, this sentence is coming from this interviewees. So what about this feeling? And from the beginning of our lecture, I have already said, don't feel hesitant if you say, I feel, or I believe, I think, I believe, or I feel. Yeah, so this is definitely okay in the interview research. In P2, when we are working on our questionnaire survey, I said try to avoid using the personal voice. Try to not say I, but instead try to say using the passive tense, such as the questionnaire was administered to whom, and the questionnaire has shown what, instead of say, I find what. Yeah, so this is the difference between P3 and P2, because the P3, we can use a very subjective method to report it. Yeah, so we already acknowledge that the interview research is a very subjective research. Okay, so if you report this sentence, you should always connect that with the background of these interviewees and try to guess what could be the feeling behind the sentence they said, and not only stays on the superficial level, yeah, but try to go deeper. And in the beginning of our course, I mentioned several times that we need to show the richness of data. Richness of the data means what is the meaning behind the data. We need to dig it out. Okay? And some students asked, in my future research report, in the appendices, do I need to present the full transcript? Or can I only present the summary of that? Because this is selective transcript. So it's up to you. There is no fixed criteria for that. Okay, so whether you want to present the full transcript, to record every sentence at what time and what is the feeling, you can do it. But it's also time consuming. It needs a joint group work. And if you say, in our group, we are short of time and energy, and so we only wanted to present the selective transcript, and then you need to justify in the transcript which parts are necessary to present, and which words I need to keep it, which words I can remove it. So because I can only rely on the appendix to guess what your interviewees means, and then connect to your interpretation in the findings part. If in your transcripts you use the selective one, and the parts you keep there cannot make me understand, cannot make me confident that your interpretation is correct, and then I have to punish you with the points in the final report. Yeah. So in other words, if you wanted to use a selective transcript, you do need to keep the most relevant parts and the most important words, which are consistent with the findings in the future. Should be consistent with the findings in the future. So I give you an example. If in the findings you tell me about the story A, and then I go to your appendices to read your transcripts. It's a selective. You cannot hear? Okay. Can any other students hear it? Yeah. So it's Shoko, it's have you switched on your speaker? Yeah, so for other students, they can help me. Okay. Okay, so the lecture is also videotaped. So if you cannot hear or you have difficulty to hear it, yeah, this will be uploaded to YouTube. You can watch it later. Yeah. Okay, I have to continue with it. Let's go back to the topic, the findings. Suppose in the findings part that I read story A, and then I go to your appendices. So I read your appendices, and then I find, no, from your appendices, actually it is about story B. Yeah, so there is a difference between what you reported and what I have found from your appendices. So they are not consistent with each other, and then your report will lose points. So if you use selective transcripts, you really need to justify what you need to keep it in your appendices. Yeah. Okay. So is it clear? Can I go to the next slide? Okay. Yes, it's clear. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. And for Shoko, I don't know what is the technical problem because all the other students can hear it. So I have to type to you. Why asked? I have a question regarding how we are supposed to conduct interview. Uh, yeah, actually, this is a good question. I also have this question from another class, 1K. The problem is that we strongly suggest students to have the face-to-face interview. But at this crisis moment, it is quite impossible to have the face-to-face interview. And I will say you can feel free to phone your interviewees or conduct online interview. And originally, in the beginning of the period, I said each group better has 4 to 5 interviews. But due to the current situation, it could be quite difficult to do that. So I can be flexible for it. You can do 3 to 4 interviews, and it can be online or via Skype or via telephone. Yeah, so these are also possible. It's accepted. Yeah, so I will not confine it to 4 to 5 interviews. So this can also be okay. Not necessary all to face-to-face interview. Yeah. Open questions with can we? No, that's not a good choice. And the reason is if we use the Google form, the online open question interviews, this equals to email interview. This is almost the same. And the drawback is we cannot ask probing questions. So probing questions cannot be followed up. And the reason we wanted to have the, let's say, real-time interview, we need to talk to the people, is we need to guess from their voice, from their, let's say, facial expressions, what may happen. And I can immediately think about the follow-up questions. So this is the skills you need to be trained. If you use the Google form with open questions, you only collect very superficial information from your interviewees. So when you read it, you find, hey, I'm still not clear about this point. Can I ask the interviewees to go deeper into it? And I would like to say that very possible they will not respond to your subsequent emails for that. So better is to phone them, even 30 minutes, 20 minutes. That will be better than using the email open question interview. Okay? Now, I'm going to go to the next slide. This is an example of the interview transcripts from my previous students, their appendices. And you can see that the structure is clear. They record what is the time for that, on which day they have it, and the interviewers opening for it. So these are all the sentences from the interviewers, the questions, yeah, the questions here, yeah, the questions. And then for the interviewees, so this is the respondent, see, these are all the respondents, and it is very clear they use different columns to see that. So, see, this part you distinguish that this sentence is from interviewer, this is from the respondent. Yeah, and for some groups they also write down what is the time for that, like 3, something like this. And they use this way to record at what time that this questions are asked. Yeah, is asked. Okay, so this is the example how you can organize your interview transcript. But this one is not the best example. In other words, this is not the best template for you, because we do find some groups, they work it in a very nice way. They extend the table. Besides the literary answers from the interviewees, they also put extra occurrence here. Extra occurrence. And for extra occurrence, they write down what they have filled with. So they extend it. And for example, for this one, they said, hey, when the interviewee said this one, and he shows excitement. And he shows his willingness to do it. And when the interviewee do this, and he is quite hesitant. Yeah, so, and here, you can also put he laughed aloud. Yeah, laughed aloud. Yeah, or a bit disappointed. Yeah, so you write down what you have observed, and this will help you in the future to interpret your findings. Yeah, so in the future you will not only say, okay, what they told us, but you will also say, hey, what is the feeling when they told us? Yeah, so this is very important. Okay, so this is the example of the transcript. Okay, now I'm going to move to the next slide. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. What is coding? We have already practiced that in Atlas TI. And the newest version is 8.0. Last time, I just used my own students' transcript sample to train you how you can select the relevant information and to code it. And Atlas TI will organize all the codes in a list. And today we are going to learn what is the meaning that we need to code it. So first step is we need to have our research questions. Based on our research questions, we design our interview questions. I give an example to all the groups. I said when you design your interview questions, you can elicit that based from your research questions. That you do it like this. Yeah, suppose this is your sub research question 1, and this is your sub research question 2. Okay, and then you go to your interviews. For sub research question 1, you design 1 interview questions, and then for the same, you design another interview questions, and then 3, 4, and 5, like this. So you use a cluster of the questions. Yeah, so this is the cluster of 1 question. For the sub-research question, a cluster of 3 questions for the sub-research question 2. Okay, and when you receive all the answers from your interview questions, suppose the answer is very long, and you analyze it, you use the codes. And you just open your mind to read through the transcript. So everything you find relevant for you to answer the sub-research question, you just code it. Everything you find, it will help my readers to understand my story, understand what I mean. You code it. Okay. So then from your codes, you may generate different concepts. Yeah. So generate different concepts. Okay. And then you need to compare your concepts. You need to compare it to see what kind of concepts are very similar to each other. For example, in this case, that concept 1 means category 1. Concept 2 means this. Concept 3 means this. So later, you can merge them into one concept called category 1. And from this category, you gradually form your themes. So your theme will come out. This could be theme 1, and later we may have theme 2. Yeah. So my themes originated from the category, and the category are the cluster meaning of the different concepts, and the different concepts are based on my codes. So this is how the meaning is made. And if I have the themes, and later I can also merge them into a hypothesis. Yeah, said, okay, this could be related with each other. Yeah, and in the future, if someone wants to replicate the research using quantitative method, they can test this hypothesis to see whether it is accepted or rejected by them. Okay, and this echoes to what I have said from the beginning of qualitative research, is when we have the research question at this moment, we don't have hypothesis. So we don't have hypothesis, no, because there is no existing theory. So we don't have an assumption what may happen, okay? And then I go out, I use explorative study to explore what happens there. And then I code everything which are relevant to the research question, and I find the concepts. And some concepts are very similar to each other. They all point to one direction, and then I merge them into one code. For example, our current assignment, you interview those marketing experts, and some of them mention the online shopping or online, let's say, online strategy or digital marketing. They all means the same category about digital marketing. Okay, and then you can say, okay, from this one, they also mention the purchase intention. The purchase intention. And then I would like to see, okay, whether the online shopping and the purchase intention, they are related with each other. Yeah. So in the future, I would like to test this hypothesis. Okay. So this is why we first have the code. And the next step is to compare the codes. Yeah. So compare the codes. Okay. And how to compare the codes? Let's look at this. This is from my previous students group of the last year cohort. And this is group 1. Group 1, they have 2 sub-research questions. Based on the 2 sub-research questions, they have their interview questions here. Yeah. And this is group 2. Also 2 sub-research questions, but I asked them to go deeper into it. And based on these 2, they have a list of interview questions. And the best one is this one. You see that they use the cluster to show their sub-research questions here. But I also asked them to specify that here in the sub-research question part. Okay, so this is the table I expect to read from your report. You show me what is the justification, what is the, let's say, the thinking that you design the current interview questions. In other words, interview doesn't mean that you go to your interviewees and to have a free talk with them. For our current research assignments, this is not the best way. We are using the semi-structured interview. Yeah. Okay. And this is from my master student's thesis and from her interview transcript. And at the first time when I read this student's thesis, I failed her. The reason is she made it too simple. She only reports the literary meaning of the interview. Well, I cannot see the meaning behind it. I cannot see the richness of the data. Therefore, I took out her interview transcript and I read and I try to use the open coding strategy to open my mind to find what are the information relevant to her research question. Okay. And when I read it, this is all my codes. These are all my codes. You see, all my codes. What I read, okay, and the late I code it, and with the number of that, And you can see for open coding, one thing is very important, is your codes are very short. Yeah, so very brief and short codes. The reason I mention it is because from graduation project students, I frequently found some students use the whole sentence as the code. It is too confusing, especially in the future when you have 6 or 10 interviews and you are this is individual task. It is too difficult for you to do it within a short time. So I will suggest to use very brief and short expressions as the codes. And later, I just brainstorm. I write the things, the codes on my whiteboard, and then I find, okay, for interviewee A, C, D, and E, these 4 interviews, all the words they mentioned, although different meanings, but all means profit-driven. Yeah. So I will say, okay, these 3 agree that the small difficulty of the explanation because the company has the priority. And interviewee B is different as these 4. Yeah, he said why he said that we need to focus on accountability instead of profit driven. And then my question is why this interviewee has a different opinion. Is it because of his or her experience or because of the team that he is leading? Yeah. So I try to compare all the codes, find to what point that most interviewees agree with each other, and some interviewees show different opinions, and why. And I will not comment, say this is correct or this is wrong. No, 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 no. So I will not say the more people say this is correct, this is wrong. No, don't do that. No. So, but you need to justify why the 4 people saying this, why 1 people saying that. What is the reason for that? Okay. Let's move to the next slide about theoretical saturation. Yeah, the picture here, saturation means you really have full. It's enough. So what do we mean that theoretically it is enough saturation? Suppose we have 5 interview. So we have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, and I use the open coding to code the first one. Okay, I code the first interview transcripts, and then I have a list of the codes. These are my list. Okay, and then I use open coding to code the second one, and I generate the second list. And then I will combine this list and to see, okay, let's say this is covered by both. And the second one add something new. So I combine them. And then I go on to use open coding for the third one. And the third one also mentioned a lot, this. And then what I have found is there is nothing new. Or everything that the third people added is already recovered from this list. So this list is complete now. So then I go to the fourth one and see, okay, whether this person will add something new. And if I find no, nothing new, that means you have already achieved your theoretical saturation. Okay? But if you find that the fourth one still adding new things, then you'd better go to the fifth one and still use the open coding. Okay. And so why we need to check the theoretical saturation? There are several considerations. First, we know that for interview research, the sample size is relatively small. The sample size is relatively small. Okay, and then we are asking ourselves, it's relatively small. does this mean that I need to have 6 interviews or 10 interviews or 20 interviews? Which one is better? Actually, the researcher said, if you have achieved your theoretical saturation when you have 6 interviews, it is not necessary to have 10 or 20 because it's just waste of time. Yeah, we know that each interview takes a lot of time, so it's not necessary to go on with it. And if 6, you cannot reach the theoretical saturation, but at 10 you reach it, okay, then you just stop at 10. It's not necessary to have the 11th or the 12th interview, not necessary anymore, okay? So this theoretical saturation determines at what sample size I can stop, go on interview the other people. So whether I have already achieved an optimal sample size for the interview, okay? And the second is, because I need to reach the theoretical saturation, I use the open coding strategy. And the open coding strategy is relatively time consuming. Yeah, so open coding is time consuming. Open coding is time consuming because I need to read every sentence, every meaning, I need to code it. And in comparison with that, I can also use selective coding. Selective coding. So that means I have the list of the existing codes. If the theoretical saturation is reached from these 3 interviews, from these 3, I have a list of these interview codes. And for the 4 and the 5, I don't need to use the open coding. Instead, I can use the existing list of the codes to selectively read my transcript. I will save a lot of time. So this is why we need to check the theoretical saturation. Okay, but the question comes, for our current assignment, is it possible for us to look into theoretical saturation? It is difficult. It is possible, but it is difficult. The reason is, I just said, due to the current crisis moment, it's difficult to have 4 or 5 interviews. We minimize it to 3 or 4 interviews. So whether from 3 interviews you can already achieve theoretical saturation, this is questionable. So I'm not confident of that. So what you can do is you write down that into the limitation part in the discussion chapter. Discussion or conclusion chapter can be merged into one chapter. Yeah. One subheading, one subsection is a limitation. Conclusion and the discussion chapter is in one chapter, could be, and one part is the limitation. And in this limitation part, you can mention, due to the current limited sample size, that it's very difficult to check the theoretical saturation. That is why the findings is vulnerable. Yeah, so this is the limitation. No research is perfect. So feel free to acknowledge that your research has some limitations. Don't worry about it. Okay? So this is the 4th step. We check the theoretical saturation. And after that, we go on to step 4. Just now is step 3. And then we need to analyze the relationships. We have the themes. And we want to see how the topics are related with each other. And the textbook that you are using presents a table to indicate to you what could be the potential relationships between the codes, between the concepts, between the themes. For example, X is a kind of Y, X is a place of Y, or is part of that. Like the School of Business and Economics is part of this university. And the a causal relationship, X is a cause of Y, such as the foundation of this university increased the demand for highly qualified personnel in this region. And so this sentence, and the reason for that, a place for doing something, and used for something, and is a way to do, is a step or a stage for that. It shows the sequence. This is quite important for our current research assignment because we are exploring the effective commercialization way. And then very possible your interviewees will suggest you first need to do what and then to do what. Yeah, so pay attention to the link words that they have mentioned, whether you need to do step by step to commercialize these technological innovative gadgets. And relationship can also be an attribute or characteristics of certain things. Yeah, so this could be the relation types when you analyze your code or themes. And we can also visualize it in the future. But before that, I will first have a question to all of you. We have 10 students today attend today's course. Suppose in your final group report, you write it, and now you come to chapter 4, results, findings part. Chapter 4. Findings. So in this findings part, I need to organize, I need to structure it, use the subheadings. So like, for example, 4.1 is what? And then I write my story here. And 4.2 is what? And then I write my story. 4.3, yeah, like that. So my question for you is how I can organize my findings chapter based on the interview questions, the codes, the research questions, or my own feelings, or the themes. So who knows it? Please type your answer here. 1 to 5, which one would you like to choose? Please type your answer in this chat box. Two? Also 2. So I use the codes. 3. I use the research question. And Laura says themes. Yes. Okay. And normally when we organize it, we use research questions. So Nona is correct. And the reason is the findings part is the chapter I need to answer my research questions. So suppose you have 3 sub-research questions. And the 4.1 is you need to use this story to answer your first sub-research question. So, and then after you answer it, then you go to the next one, sub-research question 2. Sub-research question 2, okay? So, and why I don't use the codes for that, like what Jia Yu has suggested, why not the codes? Because the codes could be very different for different person. And also the codes is too much, too many codes. For one interview transcript, you may have 20, 30 codes. And if you have 3 interview transcripts, you may have in total 60 or 50 codes. That's too many. So it's difficult for you to have this one. And why not? I'm not going to use the themes to report the findings part, because the themes are actually based on the combination of the codes. So it's just a part of the research question. It's possible. It could be the themes also for one research question. Then you can use the theme. But most of the time, according to my experience, for one research question, you may generate 2 or 3 themes for that. Yeah. So the best way for you to do it is use your sub-research question as the subheadings to structure your findings part. And a very good thing is no student choose report the interview question one by one. That's good, because all of you have a clear idea that my interview questions should be interpreted as a cluster instead of interpreted only individually or separately. I should integrate the meanings of these three interview questions together to report it. So nobody choose one, that is good. And also nobody choose own feelings, because our own feelings is too subjective. It's not reliable. Okay, so good. And then let's look at this. This is what I mentioned. You can visualize it. You can use a matrix to visualize it, like a table. Yeah. So you can also use a three-dimension table, such as for female customers, for male customers. What is the best way for that? Yeah. So you use this table to write down some keywords. I also see sometimes the students use plus and minus to show different interviewees' opinions. Yeah, so this means neutral. Yeah, so it's also a good idea. So very flexible. And you can also use a network graph, such as this one, network graph, like this, a relational graph, this, that one is related to what? Yeah, such as the logistic of such innovative product to the target country. What is related for that? We need to think about the tax. We need to think about the legal aspects. Yeah, so they are all related, all the concepts. Or you use the process graph, as I said. Perhaps you need to show the sequence of commercialization. What are the steps for that? Stage 1, we need to do what? Stage 2, what? And stage 3, we achieve what? Yeah. Or maybe it's organizational structure for that. You use a hierarchical graph. Hierarchical graph, it's also possible. And now my question for you is where to visualize it. In the beginning of my chapter 4 findings, so chapter 4 findings, in the beginning of it or by the end of the findings. So who will say that? What is your decision? Where to present my visualization? In the end of that, that's correct. Yes. Laura, you're right. So we should present it in the findings part and by the end of that. Don't present this visualization in the beginning of that. Why? The reason is this visualization normally is to crystallize the findings. You first need to present the complete story, and then you gradually try to make it more abstract and then visualize it. So this is the final findings to summarize what you have found. Yeah. So such as this is from my sub-research question 1, this is from my sub-research question 2, and this is 3. And finally, I integrate the findings together, use a visualization to present it. So that is why we should present it at the end of that. And the previous students also asked, how many visualization I need to present in my report? It's up to you. There is no fixed rule for that. I will not say present 2 is worse than 3 or 3 is worse than 2. But one thing is clear. You don't need to present everything. So not necessary to have everything. Yeah. Some students are very hardworking. For every interview questions, they present 1. So when we read their report, they ask 15 interview questions in the interview, and we find 15 visualization. That's really too much. Yeah. And some students, for every sub-research question, they present 1. In some cases, it is okay, but you also need to think about whether your sub-research questions are inherently related with each other. If they are related with each other, why not combine them into one visualization? Then that will make your readers understand better what is the holistic overview of that. So you can use one or two, but the most important thing is don't have too many visualization. Only for the main meaning, for the most important thing, then you visualize it. Okay. And the next one is for metrics, for using the table or using the network. Which one is better? So there is no fixed answer for it. It's all up to you. If you wanted to present an overview of your interviewees' opinions, like then you can use the table to show how many people show the positiveness, the positive attitude, how many show the negative attitude, like this. Yeah, so then that's clear. Yeah, but if you wanted to see how the main topics they are related with each other, you wanted to see the sequence, then you'd better use the network. Okay, so this is what we have discussed today. And now is the time for you to practice your own code and discuss with your group members. Try to contact your interviewees as soon as possible and to make a telephone interview or Skype interview with them. I repeat again, so interview could be 3 to 4 for this period due to the crisis moment. Okay, so anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. More information for the report? Okay, how to reach interviews right now? Yes. Okay, get more time. So sure, I will discuss with your coordinator whether we can extend it a bit. Yeah, I do know it's quite difficult for you. Yes, right. Yeah, this is something really unexpected. I fully understand your difficulty. Okay, I will discuss with your coordinator. Thanks for raising this question. I will try to solve the problem and announce it at Blackboard. Yeah? Okay? Okay. Is other questions? Do you have other questions? Okay, so it's clear. And on Thursday, we will have 2 courses. And the first one is a consultation moment. So it's up to you whether we can merge them into one or you can discuss with your group members because different groups may have different group difficulties. So please discuss with your group members. Okay, whether you want to merge 2 courses into one or you want to have 2 separate different sessions or you want to have a group hands-on instructions. So please feel free to email me.